Okay, 6:01. I've just got a text message from Chris Garrity, who's going to be joining us, that he's running a little bit late, but will be here presently. So I suggest that we look at the other discussion items prior to his coming. Should we start with Glenn? Maybe you could bring us up to date on the status of the Swift House Architect RFP.
I don't have too much. I know that in one of our previous meetings, we did talk about it. I was looking for the notes. I couldn't quite find it. I think Barbara Herbst was going to, we all talked about where we're going to find the money for $13,900. And I think Barbara was going to try to look at where that could come from. And that was the last I'd heard. And I think that was a few meetings ago. We had a meeting yesterday and we did not get to talking to Swift. We had a few department heads we had to talk to. But we are meeting tomorrow, and I think we'll be talking about Swift tomorrow, and if not then on Monday. So we definitely have two meetings coming up, and we'll be chatting about this soon. So right now I'm looking at the proposed budget for 2023-24, and I do see that it's up a bit. It's 20,000, 350. I think that's for repairs and for building mostly.
Yeah, but I don't see anything in there at all for architect or for, the evaluation needs assessment. Can you maybe send up a reminder to Barbara that that's an important task?
Yes, I will do that.
I have been doing some looking into state grants. They used to give grants for planning and architecture and engineering and things. The STEEP grants now require that be done in advance of applying for a STEEP grant, but it can be applied, the cost of it can be applied toward the 20% match that they would like to see for any STEEP grant involving construction. And this building would fit very neatly into the requirements for a STEEP grant. It's a community asset. It's historical preservation. It has a lot of requirements met. But one of the things that has to precede an application for a STEEP grant is getting the architecture and engineering design work done. So the longer we wait to address that, the longer the building sits, in need of repairs and upgrades and vacant and not in use. So
in order to get the grant, we have to find the money for the architects, get them here, get their report, and then we need to have their needs assessment and the design proposal and the grant period. I don't know when the next application is. I called to find that out from Maria Horn's office today, and it will probably be after the budget is set at their June meeting. So it would be, end of June. Last year's grant application period was around that period of time. But, and then there were other deadlines during the year. But we can't really apply, the town can't apply for a STEEP grant until they want it to be shovel ready. You have plans, you can start. So the STEEP grant is for the actual construction. It's not for the architect themselves.
Yes, okay. It used to be for the architect. As of last year, that changed. And now the architectural work has to be done in advance of applying for so that, it's the same issue that we have with presenting any plan to a town meeting. You have to have an estimate of what it's going to cost before you can apply for a grant or assign town funds or, you know, make any progress.
And do you know the range of steep grants? I mean, is there an idea of what municipalities could get?
There's a range. I think it's up to $500,000 in a year, in a fiscal year.
Okay. Now we will address this. Like I said, we got 2 meetings, one tomorrow, and then one Monday. So I will bring this up, and I'll email Barbara.
Yeah, it would be nice to be able to make some forward progress. Okay, so that was one thing on the agenda. The other thing that is easy enough to address is approval of the regular meeting schedule, which we discussed at our last meeting, but because February is a short month, we were short a couple of days in order to get the regular schedule on the agenda for the rest of the year. So this is a special meeting, and I would like to make a motion that the regular meeting schedule in the agenda be approved, which calls for meetings on I believe the second Wednesday of each month at 6 p.m. April 12, May 10, June 14, July 12, August 9, September 13, October 11, November 8, December 13, and then in 2024, January 11 and February 8, just so that they're, you know, through the holidays, we don't miss a deadline. Do I hear a second for that? We could discuss.
I'll second it.
Okay. You know, we had this discussion briefly at the last meeting. I don't anticipate that we will need to meet at all these times, but it's much easier to cancel a meeting than to call a special meeting or schedule a meeting and try to find out what everybody's availability is. So are there any questions or suggestions? Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Okay, the motion is passed.
But before you pass that motion, I think Marge is trying to speak.
Oh, are you on mute, Marge?
Mute. Sorry about that. I understand why you're having all these meetings scheduled. I certainly get that we need to have them scheduled instead of having to do special meetings. I'm rather dismayed at the idea of having to meet every single month. So I'm glad to hear you say that we may not be meeting every month.
Oh yeah, I don't anticipate that. I mean, I think we're sort of in a holding pattern now until the town moves forward on, you know, getting the needs assessment funding. And so that we can work with an architect to continue developing plans and figure out what the costs will be for the work that needs to be done on the building.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, yeah, I'm ready to vote.
Okay. So I think that's passed. I'm sorry that Chris isn't with us right now, because this is something that he's been thinking, the next item is something he's been thinking about for quite a while and has made some helpful suggestions. I mean, we've talked a little bit about this before, but I just wanted to go through, you know, thinking on what needs this building could help meet and problems it could help solve. We know that there's a lack of space available in town buildings for meetings now. meeting room that used to be upstairs in the town hall has now become an office, the one at the end of the hall that's, medium size. The large meeting room downstairs is also pretty well booked and oversized for a lot of organizational needs. And one of the larger problems that this proposal would solve is the problem that's come up that the selectmen have, or at least the first selectman has identified the requirement that any group meeting in town facilities take out liability insurance for each individual single meeting, which is so onerous that, it's impossible for groups. I think, Marge, you probably know about this too, because among others, the Kent Quilters have been told that they can't meet in town hall anymore unless they provide insurance for each gathering. The same is true for the Garden Club that provides a lot of volunteer service for the town and has been offered by the selectmen in the past the use of Swift House to keep their tools and supplies and meet when they have efforts underway. So the proposal is that a collective or a collaborative be established with not-for-profit town organizations, civic organizations that would like to participate, and that they could become members of a collaborative, and a 501c3 not-for-profit would be established that would be, I don't know, it could be named anything, but the organization would be formed for the purpose of operating Swift House and as a collaborative. The town would continue to own the building and be responsible for its needs. But as a collaborative, the organization could take out insurance as a group that would cover all members and any member function. And that would mean that each organization would, the cost would probably be, I've actually talked to someone at Nicholas Tobin about this, and they estimate that for liability insurance, it would be, somewhere $500 or $600 a year for the whole collaborative. And that would allow organizations to meet as frequently as they want to keep supplies there, to, have a facility where they can come and go according to their own needs. The town really owns very little real estate, and there's nothing else of the type of facility that Swift House would offer. The community house is terrific for large functions. Town hall is not very available at all for meetings now because the office upstairs the room upstairs has become an office. So that's really not very available. And there are a number of organizations that are interested in this possibility. I think it would help improve, be a real community asset. It could also, at the same time, be made available for rentals for, private events that would help bring in some income too. But in the meantime, it addresses what I feel is a need in town. It's a more intimate and appealing space than the larger venues. Also, the Chamber of Commerce is particularly interested. As you likely know, they've had an office there for a while, but haven't been able to get in and use their office. They have a need for storing materials for events. There would be adequate space provided both upstairs and perhaps in the basement too, for the storage of materials and information, and things like folding, those small folding tents for sidewalk days and things of that sort in the building. So it would have multiple uses, and it would also have the benefit of having people there on a regular basis to monitor the heat in the building and make sure that everything is in good working order, and bring it to the attention of town hall if there needs to be met. Anyway, most of all, it would solve the insurance problem and be a good town asset. When we did our survey, it was pretty conclusive from the 400 plus people that responded that they really wanted the building to remain in town hands. If this collaborative idea took off and was really successful, that could go on and on. In the event that, over time there were other needs that the town had for the building, it could, it would still be available to the town for other uses. But anyway, this is an idea that I'd love to have you chime in and ask questions, suggest ideas, see if you think this is something that's workable. I mean, a structure would have to be put together that for the management, so that there isn't any additional burden on town hall staff. Chris's idea, which he's not here to present, but his idea was that these organizations that have expressed an interest, that there would be a board of, say 3 representatives from different organizations that would become a Swift House subcommittee of the selectmen, and that would be responsible for setting up, scheduling with the member organizations, keeping a computer schedule of other events that the building has been requested for, and monitoring the physical needs of the building.
So Zan?
Yeah.
Is there any indication that the town would really commit to taking care of the building?
Well, there are opportunities for grant funds to do that, to put it in good shape. But, the current administration hasn't applied for any grants. I mean, this would be a welcome opportunity. If we can get the architectural needs assessment and plan together, then by the time that's finished, we should be in good shape to make a presentation to the town and to apply for a STEEP grant. But,
well, fixing it up is one thing, but then getting it permanently into the budget for the long term, so that we don't get back into the situation that we're in now, where it just didn't get the support that it
was neglected for many, many years.
Right.
And if it's brought up into condition, if the exterior needs are addressed, hopefully in the next year through the increase in the budget, so that we don't have rotting trim and sills and things that are apt to cause more structural damage underneath, then the envelope will be completed. We've already done the roof, the chimney, repointed the foundation. And if we can get the exterior taken care of, and then a grant could take care of most of the interior costs, then there's not, you know, the building would be in good shape and there wouldn't be a lot of ongoing costs, except for, you know, every so many years, a new coat of paint. Anybody else? Glenn, do you have any ideas as a selectman of what kind of presentation or commitment or?
Well, this idea is new, you know, so it's the first time I'm hearing some kind of consortium idea. I'm kind of focused on trying to find the money for the architect, because we really can't move forward too much if we don't get that. And that's the first step in this whole thing, I think. So,
Yeah.
So,
well, you know, it pains me deeply that this building has been closed for 3 years and continues to be closed.
we know.
And,
We
yeah.
know. So I'm truly like me and the rest of the Board of Selectmen. There's Jean here, I think, right? We are, you know, we're busy with the budget. It's been quite a busy time. And like I said, we have 2 more meetings. We have a lot to discuss. We have a lot more. We have discussed a lot. We have a lot more to discuss. And this is definitely one of those. So, yep. that's what I have to say.
Okay. Well, our state representative has said that her office would be happy to endorse any application that we were able to put in and try to help us get some state help, which I think could be very beneficial. I mean, one of the needs that was identified in the 2012 POCD, which has never been acted upon, but the Chamber of Commerce is very interested in, is the idea that this building should also serve as the welcome center that our welcome center doesn't provide, you know, the information center. I mean, it's nice that we can provide toilet facilities and showers, but there's no opportunity in the welcome center for people that could provide information, brochures, schedules, you know, directions.
I agree.
And in especially in the seasonal summertime and fall, when we get so many visitors, it would be wonderful if the building could provide that need. And the present chair of the chamber is very interested in that opportunity, which, you know, I think the town could probably find, or the chamber could find volunteers for. I mean, it would be a great summer job for a high school person. And maybe in combination with someone from Templeton Farms, and they could, you know, it would be a good community service.
And I'm going to try, I've got to turn in the next chapter of my book by the end of March. If I get that done, then I'm going to get back to the nomination for the state register. I haven't forgotten about doing it. I just have not been able to put the time into it. So
I know that it's partway underway. How much you think it by April?
I have no, I don't know, Zan. Yeah. I haven't even been able to think about it for a couple of months. I have to turn this book chapter in, period.
Okay. Is that something that the selectmen are willing to sign off on once it's ready to go, Glenn?
The register?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the application has to come from the town. It can't come from the Historical Society or the Swift House Task Force. It has to be applied for by the town and signed by a town official.
Right, but I would present it to the town just ready to be signed.
Right. Yeah. Have I missed something? Has there been a presentation of this to us before?
No, because I haven't had time to do. I have not had time to do it.
So the Board of Selectmen haven't talked about this because
no. And Marge and I had a couple of conversations about it over the winter, and I knew she was busy with that chapter, and we're just waiting, and so she can get that back on her front burner, and we were going to sit and go over it.
I do
Okay.
want to do it. I've just got this, getting paid to write this. I'm getting paid to write this book and I have to get the deadlines met.
Okay, if there's anything else that others can do to be of help there,
Okay.
let us know.
Well, Alice is in the wings. She's waiting. We'll get it done.
Okay, great. Well, that's good because that is also something that's required if we were to apply for a historical preservation grant. So trying to get the pieces of the puzzle together so that the town is in a position to find the funds to help execute some of these ideas. I mean, what do any of you think about the idea of trying to establish this collective or consortium that would help take a lot of work off the shoulders of town hall and would, put the building back into use once we can get a ADA compliant bathroom and entrance there. And my understanding is that all of the ADA work does not have to be done at one time. That if those two major concerns are met, that the rest of the work can be done, planned and done over a period of time. So, I also don't see anything in the budget for Swift House that would help cover any of those needs.
Right. I think it makes sense that the chamber is really, really dedicated to committing to this. I think it sounds like a good idea.
Well, they want and need space. I don't even know if they've been able to get their things out of Swift House that have been stored there while it's been closed. But, I think part of the reason they've canceled some of their events this year is because they just, they'd like to be able to use it as an entryway for the champagne stroll, for example,
Sure.
which they've done in the past. So that there are a number of civic uses that it could be very valuable for.
Can I ask a quick question? And
Sure.
it's actually of Joyce. Joyce, did the chamber ask to use the building for the champagne stroll? My understanding was the champagne stroll was not held the last 2 years, not
Right.
because there was no access to that building. It had nothing to do with that building.
No, that wasn't an access problem, but it was, but in the future, if they resume doing that, they would like to be able to use it. It was worked very well the year that they did use it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else would like to, happy to have guests chime in?
I'll say my short piece.
Okay.
My short piece is that we wait until we find out if the town is going to do something with an architect or not before we have any wonderful ideas of doing anything further. Because if we don't have the money for that, I think we're kind of sitting here.
Yeah.
If the town is not going to come up with the money for an architect so we can work on the things that need to be fixed in the building to use the building, then I really don't understand why the town would be interested in keeping the building and not selling it to someone that might fix it up and or give it to a group that would fix it and be able to use it.
Well, that of course is always an option. Then you'd have not much control over what happens to it. I think the saleability, is probably diminished by its location next to a gas station and with a veterans monument in the yard.
Well, no, I agree. But what I'm saying is maybe they could designate it to a group, another function of the town that would be willing to use it, and maybe a private business that would be willing to open it up and spend their money so they could have an office, but would agree to let the town use the old historic part for meetings and things like that, and just use the the other room for an office. There are
I
lots
think-
of different
yeah.
things we could do, but we're just sitting here spinning around and around. And until we get an answer from the townspeople, which in a budget would be passing it.
Well, we can't
saying-
present it to the townspeople without a budget, and we can't, I
Correct.
mean, we can't do a budget until we outline the specifications for the work that needs to be done with
Right,
the, working with the architect that we requested,
right.
last fall. So hopefully that will happen and the funds can be found. And then you can start on a trajectory of getting all the information together that you need to either to have a town meeting and to apply for state funds to help with the process.
And Chris is on now, I believe.
And now Chris is on. Chris,
Hey, everyone.
hi. We have been having a discussion of
Yep.
The possibility of putting together a collective or collaborative or consortium or whatever you want to call it that would be responsible for operating Swift House as a joint facility. If you have something you want to, your feelings on that suggestion?
My feelings. Well, I think I've made clear my feelings pretty much throughout the time we were on, that I was on the subcommittee with you and Marge, that it's my thought that we have the community house, which is wonderful as space for events. But I just have a personal feeling with the diminishing concept of community in certain components, meaning there are not as many people attending church. There is not as many at the elementary school. With COVID interrupting life, it seems to me that we've had, there's really fewer places to congregate. And I see the Swift House, if indeed the town decides to put the time, the money, the energy in it, I see the most viable use of it is as being a civic-based place to congregate. And as Ann knows and others may know, I called together a group of civic organizations, not-for-profit organizations, and asked them to come to a meeting and just get their flavor and feeling of that concept. And by and far, it seemed that there was a large support for having a space that was, in my mind, was, as I was presenting it, free of charge, and that people, different organizations could use for office space, gathering space, even storage space. And the Chamber of Commerce and also the Historical Society were two groups that felt that they could take the lead, if you will, in terms of day-to-day usage and flow of people. The concept would be would be an open bathroom for visitors, could be a visitor center. So there was real support for that, but they wanted two things. Well, I don't know, wanted, but one of the main things that was very attractive to them was having good, clean, nice space to operate. And that means investing money. So again, there is a group that would certainly use it. And also there was discussion about how to run it so that the town didn't have to worry about operating it, that Joyce didn't have to worry about who was in and out of it. They could report to Joyce in sort of a big way, if you will, as a group. So those details certainly weren't hammered out or finalized, but everyone thought that could be achieved. So generally speaking, I think there's strong use for civic groups It's my personal bent as well. I think that if the town decides they want to keep this building, I think it's the most logical use of it. I don't believe, I'm in a business where rate of return on a piece of property is preeminent, but it's a municipal building, so there shouldn't really be worried about a rate of return. It's either we invest in it or we divest of it. And if we invest in it, I believe that there is a strong community use that could happen there. Does that sum it up, Zan?
Yeah, I think so. There are like 3, 6, you know, there are 9 organizations that have expressed an interest in using the building and potentially becoming members of whatever kind of collaborative is put together. And, you know, we haven't taken a lot of details to them, but I have inquired about the cost of insurance, and that would certainly solve the insurance problem of any organization having to get liability insurance for each and every single meeting that's held on town property. If there were a not-for-profit entity that could provide the insurance to its members, then they could meet anytime they want to. And the cost would only be, you know, in the vicinity of $500 or $600 a year for all of them. So that would be a boon, and, you know, would sort of simplify the issue of getting liability insurance to Joyce for each and every event that takes place. And the town would be covered and, you know, not at risk. So if this idea has merit, then the next step, as Ed said, is that we are going to, without wasting a lot more time on those details, but having sort of a framework that we could propose and flesh out, the next thing we need to do is to get a needs assessment and a plan together so that we can get estimates of what it would cost for the town to continue to address the remaining exterior needs of the building, hopefully in this next year. And then, you know, put a budget together for interior improvements to make it a really flexible and workable and attractive space. And then we'd be in a position to apply for grants. I'd like to, you know, take a vote of the members of the committee, if possible, if this idea is something that sounds like it's a good idea. I'd like to see if this is something that we should be putting in our report to the selectmen and trying to work out some of the remaining details. Do you feel that this is something that we should be proposing in a more specific way?
Is this in our scope?
Well, in our scope, we're supposed to be making recommendations to the town. And I'm asking you if this is a recommendation that you think we should look further into and flesh out details, and it should become a part of our recommendation as an option for the town.
I don't have a problem with that, but like I said, until we find out, I mean, an architect, if we get going on this and he gives us a price breakdown, they will tell us what areas of the building need to definitely be done first, second, third, fourth.
We have to give them a usage plan so that they can know what the building's going to be used for. And if it's going to be used as a community asset for organizations and for, you know, perhaps also rental as it has been in the past for private events, then that's what they would work to design. So
Well,
it's
I think-
important that we give them some direction.
Well,
And-
once we hire the company, then we can give them the direction as far as we need a building that's legal for public use. And then we need to also have, we do need, like you said, a group of people that would let us know what their interests, whether they want office space, whether they want meeting space, whether they want individual offices. We could be working on that also, but if we don't have the funding, then why are we wasting our time until we get at least close to an architect?
We can get the funding to do the needs assessment, we do need to direct the architect as to what the probable use of this building will be.
And I think that'll be pretty simple to do.
Okay, if it's going to be used by organizations for meetings and gatherings, we've been having this discussion for quite a while. The assumption is that it would have to be opened up a bit to make the flow of traffic better, to meet ADA requirements. We need an improved kitchen and an ADA compliant bathroom. And if we're going to have storage upstairs, we probably also need to improve the stairway to meet code requirements.
Well, that sounds pretty simple, and it's something that I think we already know. I'm leery about us getting involved in trying to figure out more details about this and that. It just seems like this is becoming an endless project.
Well, I mean, we have been in the stage where we have been requesting the involvement of an architect to make sure that the plans we have discussed, or a plan that would be adjusted, would meet all of the ADA, state code, fire code, any other code that needs to be respected in a public building is met. And I mean, that's where we're sitting waiting at this point. So it's another plea to get that moving.
Jan, I just have a question, and I hear what Marge is saying. It's like it seems like we just keep going round and round and round on this. And my way of thinking is we basically have the selectmen, whether they agree, and if they agree to put forward to the town of Kent up to $300,000 to improve this building, however you improve it. I think that if you don't do that, you'll never answer the question whether this town has the sentiment to move forward on this.
Well,
if not, we're going to end up spending money on architectural plans for specific or general specific ideas, when the real question is, does the town and the taxpayer have the desire and the stomach to make this a municipal property that can be changed over time? If not, we're going to get lost in the weeds, as I think we have, unfortunately, here and there.
Before you joined us, Chris, I brought people up to date a little bit about STEEP grants and what the parameters are and what needs to be done before the town could apply for a STEEP grant. STEEP grants at the moment are requesting that there be a 20% buy-in by the town. The grants can be up to $500,000. Before you can apply for a grant, you have to have a needs assessment and a plan, an architectural plan, and an engineering evaluation of the condition of the building. If we apply for historical preservation, we have to have the application in and approved for the State Register of Historic Places. So these are the things that need to be done, but there is every opportunity, and Maria Horn has said she would her office would work with us to endorse our application and try to help us get a steep grant. But the first step in every conversation we have is we need to work with an architect and engineering firm for the needs assessment. And
well, with all due respect, I understand that to a degree, but there's no reason to go and do all of that if people don't want it.
We had a survey.
Yeah, but that's not enough. It's not enough. What has to happen is a town meeting, and the town has to say yay or nay. We do this all the time with any major expenditures where we say, do we want to do this or not? And we just went through one with a safety resource officer. There was not a lot of meat, if you will, behind that proposition, but
right,
there was.
It failed partly because they didn't do their homework and look at other options. And I, for one, Chris, really don't want to go before the town and make a proposal that I don't have a financial estimate on. And you can't get a financial estimate unless you have a plan and evaluate the current condition.
Well, I think that
I mean, it's a $13,900 investment in the planning and evaluation. I mean, originally, I had just asked for a consulting architect to look at the plan that when you were on the committee and the subsequent task force had put together as a proposal, and to see if that met all of the requirements for a public building, and to advise if there was a better plan. And that would have been less money, but you know, the selectmen decided that it would be better to ask an architect to look at it anew and do their own plan.
Right. The only difference here, Zan, that I see is this is something that we actually already own.
Right.
And so it either A, sits as it is, vacant and sort of not doing anything, or B, the town has to decide what to do with it. This, if you recall, this is what we did with the community house. This goes back to when Carly and a whole bunch of other people were on, Noma Morose was on it, the whole group of people who stepped forward and said, okay, we want to actually invest in it. And the town said, okay. And I think we have enough information. I know I do as a voting member of town, to basically weigh whether we want to invest in this property or divest of this property. And I don't think, honestly, and I appreciate the work that we all have done, you in particular, Zan, but I think that we'll go round and round and round if we don't have a decision from the town to say, yes, we want to do it. It then forces our hand, meaning the municipal, the people who are responsible on the municipal side, to actually do something. And that would mean then drawing up plans.
I mean, I don't disagree in theory, but how do you arrive at, I mean, the question that was asked more in the comments section of our survey than any other was, I want to know more about what it's going to cost. I don't think you can just throw a number out there until you know what it will take and have a reasonably accurate estimate. And that's what the architect, I mean, one of the things I want to talk to them about, if given the opportunity, is whether they have a really good in-house estimator who could, you know, estimate the cost of the work that needs to be done once their architects and engineers take a thorough look at the building. I think that's an important first step.
Look at it a different way. What if you just said up to $250,000? I'm telling, I challenge everybody on this Zoom right now. If we had $250,000 that was green lighted, however we got it, whether it was taxpayer funded or we got grants, everyone right now, if we were on a committee, we would figure out how to make that place sing for $250,000. So yeah. I'm going after, for instance, when we built the firehouse, yes, they did specs. Yes, they did things to figure out how much it was going to cost. But there was a general consensus that we wanted to do this and we wanted to know roughly what it was going to cost. And I think knowing the trades and knowing what things cost, $250,000 to make that place a viable municipal center, or however we want to use it, is a number that you could hang a hat on. And if you needed more money in the future, well, then the Board of Selectmen would consider whether that needed to be done or not. But as you know, I'm not part of this group. I came in with an outside idea. I applaud everybody's work and effort, but I'm frustrated, as probably everybody is on this meeting, as to going round and round without actually putting this question to the town. And it's really easy to put this to the town, is it not, Jean and Glenn?
Well, you're going to have a lot of people that are going to ask what it's going to cost, and I don't feel like
$250,000 is the answer. Then they're going to ask why, and you're going to say, well, generally speaking, this is what we're looking at. We're looking at redoing a kitchen. We're redoing ADA compliance bathrooms. We have to do new wiring likely. We have to do, if we decide to go to the second floor, we have to have a real staircase to go up there. We've already had the building people through. Jean, I believe you've already brought somebody through, maybe John Worthington or somebody else who given us at least some of the concepts. And if that number is not $250,000, whatever that number is generally that we think, let's put it out there.
I agree 100%. And I've been saying that since day one.
Yeah.
And I think honestly,
I haven't seen any funding coming from anywhere else over the last 2.5 years that we've been on this committee.
And my concern further is, and Jean and Glenn are unfortunately grappling with this now, is they're seeing other major expenses coming down the pike that, were somewhat anticipated, but not really, i.e., funding of the ambulance. We've got hanging over us like Damocles sword, the fire department, at some point where they're going to face the same volunteer crunch. We have people who say, wow, we'd like to have a community pool. So if the Swift House group wants to get in the mix, I would recommend that they get in the mix sooner than later.
My concern is, and I still feel that it's important to have the architect and engineer involvement, because I don't want to throw a number into this very volatile mix of the ambulance and the other needs of the town without being able to say, that we would be prepared to apply for a grant. The steep grants are for construction only. They're not for ambulances or personnel or any other needs.
Actually, they can be.
What?
Steep grants can actually be used for all different things. They can even be used for playgrounds.
Well, playgrounds is a physical construction.
Well, again, guys, getting into the weeds.
Right.
Right now, Zan, your perspective is respected as Marge and Ed's and mine on the outside. But I think really the question is, and Jean's on the line and Glenn's on the line, so 2 of the 3 Board of Selectmen are on the line. And the question to you two is, could you support, and do you feel comfortable going to the town with a figure, whether it's 250, 300, 400, I don't, whatever that figure is, do you feel comfortable going to the town, calling a meeting and asking that question?
If Glenn and I opine about this, we're getting into a really, really sticky spot with FOI as far as us collectively saying how we feel one way or another about an expenditure. So I'm going to recommend that Glenn stay away from that discussion.
This is a warned meeting.
But it's not a warned Board of Selectmen meeting. And right now, if Glenn and I started talking about this topic, and you're asking us to talk about it as 2 of the 3 members of the Board of Selectmen, it could be perceived as having an illegal unwarned meeting of the Board of Selectmen, because
I disagree. I think your FOI is a little off, Gene. You 2 are selectmen. You're in a meeting that has been warned, and so you can talk about this. So that said, if you don't want to answer it now, I think what you need to do in respect to this this group that has been working on this for a long time is I believe you guys should actually put up, or you know what, because you need to get it to the town. In my opinion, again, this is just Chris Garrity, you need to get it to the town so that you move this ball down the line. If not,
Right.
I think we're just going to be stuck.
My concern, Chris, again, is that I don't want the town to think that this has to be from the taxpayer pocket if we would be eligible for a grant. I think to invest a small amount of money in putting together a plan that makes us eligible for a grant and gives us real information about the cost, that we wait to go to the town until we have that information.
So is a concern that you won't be able to get a grant?
No, the concern, I think we would be eligible for a grant. But
so how about I'm sorry to interrupt, but how about positioning it such that we are seeking money up to I'm just using the number $250,000 from the town, and we are not going to spend it until we have monies that are funded from grants up to a certain percent, whatever you think that percentage is. Well, so if you think you can get a 50% grant on 250, okay, so 125, we think we can get in grants, whether they're steep or whatever they are.
The steep requirement is that they want to have a 20% match from the town.
Okay, then that's very easy math. But the point is, rather than digging in the weeds, which I believe is going to happen when you're asking for $14,000 to have an architect. Okay. If you get that granted next budget, it's going to take you at least 6 to 8 months for an architect to put something together. And then they've got to bid it out. And then now we're talking next year in 2024, talking about this and bringing it to the town with the specifications that say, well, we spent the money to do this. And then the town's going to say, well, we really don't want to do that. We've A, wasted money, and B, wasted time. Or what you do is you put in front of people and say, hey, let's call the question. And then let's figure out the details later. We did that with the sidewalks.
Yes, we did. Yep.
Yeah. And the sidewalks took 11 years. 11 years.
We spent 11 years doing what we're doing right now.
Right.
Right. But there's a difference between the sidewalks. The sidewalks were never contemplated to be put into the operating budget. So that's a big departure from the sidewalks. So we're sort of talking apples and oranges here. I think, Zan, you and I have agreed to disagree about a lot of stuff about Swift House, but I agree with you that the next step for us to be able to take an appropriate, something close to a number to the town, because this has to go to the town, that we need to, and we're working on finding that 13.5 so that we can conduct this needs assessment. And the steep grant requires you to do a needs assessment first anyway. So if we got this money to partially fund a steep grant, we're going to have to go and do a needs assessment anyway. So I think we're on the right track.
Be a first step.
If you do that, then, and you bring it to the town, Gene, as you're planning, and it fails, you've spent what, $15,000 on a needs assessment that's not really needed. I don't get it.
How do we figure out?
It would be, if you sell the building, it would have all the engineering plans and all of the assessments about what needs to be done for
that. That may not mean anything if you sell the building, because they might bring in a wrecking ball and tear it down and start new. So you can't even use that theory.
So Gene, while I understand the concept of bringing a more complete package to the town, I'm not 100% sure the town wants this building. Even though you've done a survey, I think I just think it's more prudent to bring it out, even if it's something that says we're exploring this and we want to do a 250. Have a meeting, ask them the question.
The first line on the first page of the steep grant information says, preserving the historical integrity and beauty of our small towns is vital to our economy and quality of life. I mean, if this building were put behind the wrecking ball, shame on us. If it's sold, it needs to have restrictions on it. So that's, we need to get the historic, the registration for historical, what is it? Marge?
Designation. Yeah.
Yeah.
I apologize, guys. I have to hop off to the Conservation Commission meeting, but thanks for the including
well,
me.
Thank you, Jean, and thank you for your opinion, which I'm glad we agree on this.
Have a good night, everybody.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to sign off as well as, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm going to sign off as well as I've done what I come here to do and maybe overstepped it, but great to see you all. Thanks again for including me, and stay tuned.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, I mean, that was a healthy debate. I still feel that, I mean, we have a pretty astute Board of Finance, and they question needs and if you've done your homework. And I really feel that we have to do at least the first bit of our homework so that we can determine what the cost of this is going to be. And we can take the first step toward getting a grant. We have been proceeding based on the results of the survey that we did. And it was what, 76% or something of people said that we should retain the building for civic use. So this is acting upon the information from the survey. I don't know how to do that all over again. We could have a town meeting, but if we're going to just throw a figure out that's just out of thin air, I don't feel good about that. I'd like to have more concrete information, and that we've taken the first step toward getting a grant, and that we have support for a grant application from our state representative, and that we can do this without putting a huge financial burden on the town.
Well, then my opinion would be then is to wait and see if the architect gets approved, since you're pretty adamant on your feelings about this. And if we don't get them, either way, we're going to be a year out, whether we get the architect approved for him to give us figures on how much it's going to cost to do this building. So really, all we really need to look at is then a needs assessment. That's it. There is no other. We don't need to discuss anything until we know if we have an architect, because if we don't have an architect, what are we going to be sitting here talking about in May if we don't have one?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think this is the time for us to just put an expenditure figure out in front of the public.
Well, it could be
based on anything real.
Right. I would wait to see then, if that's what you're really insisting on, then wait to see if the architect money gets in the budget. And if it doesn't get in the budget, then we need to do exactly what Chris says, come up with a number, come up with the architect number, and go to a town meeting with it. Because if the architect money isn't in the budget, you're going to be then looking at maybe 2 years from now.
Yeah, that's key in my mind.
So in 2 years from now, what's the building going to look like? In another 2 years of not being used.
Well, I hope that Joyce is going to put the money that's in the budget into needed repairs on the exterior. I mean, what's really important to protect.
But that's not under our control, so.
But we can still express our opinion.
Yep.
Is that okay, Joyce?
That's fine, Sam.
Okay. Anyway.
So I think that's all we can do tonight then, to be honest with you.
I think so too. I mean, are the rest of you in agreement that that's the path that we should be taking?
I guess, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you all for your attention, thoughts, contribution to the discussion. And then let's see if we can get an architect engineering firm taking a look at the needs assessment. And we will convene when we know the answer to that.
Okay.
Okay, thanks so
Very
much
good.
for all your time and attention. And
Okay, thank you.
let me know if there's anything else that will help in trying to get the application together.
I'm doing my best I can, Jan.
Okay.
I'll see you all later. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.